lips, lips. And we'll do lips straight on, lips 3/4, and maybe some smiles, because smiles and teeth are a bit tricky. So maybe some expressive mouths. So join me now to learn about the mouth and lips. See you soon. Have a look at Manny and the structure underneath his lips. You can see the teeth and where they lay behind that mouth. Let's look at some bits of the areas around the mouth. We have that little cupid's bow, which is called the philtrum. And then we have the mouth itself. And under the mouth we have the shadow. Then the chin goes in and then back out again. Very important structural information. Your average daylight, or your average light when you're in a room and you have above lighting, is going to cause a shadow on your top lip. Have a look at the diagram on the right. You can see that the light is hitting above your lip, and your lip at the top is on an angle. So that actually casts a shadow on itself. Now the bottom lip catches the light, and underneath that bottom lip it casts a tiny shadow until the chin juts back out, and that catches the light. Now we're going to see how that looks on Manny when we look straight onto him. Now I've drawn on top of Manny's face the darker shadow at the top lip, the lighter bottom lip, and the shadows around the face. And then I've lifted up that drawing and placed it next to Manny's face so you can see that structure in its most simple form. Now I've taken a bunch of different pictures of mouths from different ethnicities around the world, and there's male and female lips, some with lipstick, some without, and I'm just going to discuss a few of them because I can't talk about all of them, but I'll discuss a few things that I look for specifically when I'm drawing and when I'm painting that help me. Now what these lips all have in common is they all are very defined because they're wearing lipstick. Not everybody's walking around the world, especially men, with lipstick on their mouths so we can define their lips all the time. So a lot of time you'll find that lips are not that defined. The bottom lip tends to just kind of fade out around the edges, and we can't really see where it's starting and where it's ending. And that makes it challenging to draw. If I look at these lips, the definition between the two lips is quite defined, and that's what I usually start drawing first when I'm doing a mouth. And then I do the top lip, and then I do just a tiny little shadow underneath, because you can see that's all I'm looking at in that bottom lip. Everything else is faded. One of my aims in this whole series is to explain things to people so they will know what to look for, because if you can't see it, you can't paint it and you can't draw it. So I want you to really have a look where the two lips meet, and the areas where in the corners, if it's going up or if it's going down, how dark it is. In the middle, if your mouth in the bottom left, you can see her mouth is slightly open. That little sweetness in the middle of the mouth, the one on the bottom right, just to see the negative shape in the corners of the mouth and around the teeth. Those are the things that are going to give you the likeness. Not necessarily all the way around the lips, but those things in the middle. When we're looking at smiles, we want to be looking at the corners of the mouth and the negative shape, and we want to keep those teeth very subtle. To illustrate what I'm talking about, I've done some weird colors in the negative shapes of that smile, and then I've taken it off so you can see what they look like by themselves. And then the bottom left hand corner, I've slightly changed those colors to make them a little bit more realistic and kept those teeth just a suggestion of them at the top and the bottom. The one on the right, I've put lines through all of the teeth, and it doesn't look as good. It's too heavy-handed, I think. I've done the same thing again to these two smiles, and I've put some really weird colors in the negative shapes
just to make them really obvious what they look like. Now what I've done is copied those from the other illustrations and just made line drawings with some subtle negative shapes on the left hand side, and then I've added some color. And so you can see on the right hand side I've got kind of pop art style looking lips, but you can see how subtle I've kept those teeth and how simple the information is in those negative shapes. And if you apply that same simple information into a painting, it's going to look great. Have a look at these diagrams. In A, I have a full view. B, I have a 3/4 view, which means I'm removing a quarter on the right hand side, and I'm removing those sharp corners at the side of the mouth. But if you look at the bottom of the diagram in B, you'll see that there's a tiny little bit of smile that I might see, smile lines, or a little indentation. If you look at C, I am completely halving those lips and smoothing or rounding the corners. And if you look at the bottom diagram, you'll see that there's no corners at all except for on the left-hand side. Today I'm using Winsor & Newton and Michael Harding oil paints. You don't have to use these ones, but use some good quality paints anyways. I like to have a red and a yellow to mix an orangey color. I'd also like to have a black to tone things down and a white to lighten things. So these are the ones that I'm using today. I'm using a titanium white, an unbleached titanium oxide, a yellow ochre, an Indian red, which is warm, a rose color, which is cool, and an ivory black. I'm also using a number 1 medium, which is fast drying, and to clean my brushes I'm using baby oil and some rags. Now I'm going to talk you through my process. So I'm going to get some number 1 medium, and I'm going to start with that. I'm not going to start drawing, I'm not going to use terps, I'm just going to use the straight number 1. And I'm going to experiment mixing a few different colors. So that is my unbleached titanium, and that is my Indian red, and I'm just mixing them up to see what kind of flesh tones that I can get. With these colors I can do any kind of flesh tone. Doesn't matter how dark or how light, all of these are going to work. Now I'm just adding a little bit of plain titanium white just to see what I'm going to get. A little bit of the yellow ochre or yellow oxide. You could also be doing this exercise in acrylics if you have acrylics. Just thought I'd mention that. And then I'm just adding a little bit of the yellow oxide or yellow ochre to that Indian red. And then seeing if I can tone that down a little bit by adding some black to it. Getting some darker colors. I also need some muddy areas. So if things look a little bit green, I can use that black and that yellow together to have a bit of a green tone. If I need things to look a little bit purple, I can use that cool red, the rose, with some black, and I'll get a cool tone. You don't want your face all to be just one orangey color or one yellowy color or one mahogany color. You want to have some toned down areas and some muddy areas and some bright areas. So I'm using my rose now. You'll notice when I use the rose and the yellow together, I have a different orangey color. It's very clear color. Now I'm thinking about those lips, which to me they feel like they're on the rosy sort of side of things. To clean my brush, I just use a rag and wipe it off. Now I'm going to use some black, and I'm going to mix it into my rose because I think that my lips need to be a little bit more kind of purpley. So if you look at my hand next to those colors that I've mixed, you'll see that they go well with my flesh tones, and they also go well with my model's flesh tones. I've mixed a little bit of black, a little bit of the rose, and a little bit of that Indian red together to get that dark color. I'm not going really dark. I want to save anything super black to the very end. I've mixed rose, black, and white together to get the lip color, and I'm making the bottom lighter. Now I'm building all the shades and tones around the lips. So I've got, if you can remember my diagrams, there's going to be a little bit of dark shadow underneath the lip, and then the chin is going to be a bit lighter. So I'm constantly going around the actual lips. I'm not going to make those lips perfect until I've worked out all of the placement around them. I'm keeping most of my colors a bit muddy or toned down at this stage before I start warming things up. So I've just started to warm up the cheeks on the right hand side and putting some darks in. You will notice that those lips don't have harsh edges. They're very much faded from the top lip and the bottom lip. They're faded sort of into the background of the rest of her flesh, the rest of her face. So I don't want it to look like she's wearing lipstick and for them to be super defined. So you have to keep those areas kind of fuzzy. And just work with the darks and lights, which are very subtle, to bring those things out. And it's just, the lips are just slightly rosier than the rest of the face. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just putting the last sort of little bits of rosy color where the two lips meet. Felt like a little bit warm there. And of course, putting in my last few little highlights and darkening some other little bits. And now I think I'm finished. So you can see how I've done that. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm going to do a 3/4 view. I'm going to draw it with pencil first. Then I'm going to use the same method as the last painting. I'm going to block in my basic forms, but I'm not going to do my lips. I'm going to work around my lips. I'm going to work with the dull colors first. Once I'm happy with the shapes I've created around the mouth, the negative shapes, then I will start working a little bit on the lips, just blocking in those colors, but not putting in too much detail. I may need to adjust the lip shape a little bit, so I don't want to get too caught up in details. I add the warmth to the cheeks and the chin at the end part of my painting. I also do the darkest things and the lightest things at the very end of my painting. So I'm pretty much finished. That took about 4 hours, maybe a little bit less. You can see that my skin tones are still a little bit pale. To fix that, I waited till it was dry and then I did a glaze of peach over the whole thing. And now I'm pretty happy with it. For the last painting today, I'm going to paint a smile. Here are the steps used in the following painting. You may want to pause this and read it through so you know what I'm doing while you're watching. It probably took about maybe 3 hours to do this painting.
Well, there's my finished product. You can see the chin is a little bit short. It needs to be a little bit longer, a little bit narrower, but not too bad. I hope you enjoyed today's lessons on the mouth and lips. Remember to like and subscribe. Send me any photos of work that you've done, and see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.